Okay, welcome to the deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to be talking all about something that if you really are serious about getting fluent in English, you absolutely have to start doing, and that is thinking in English. Have you ever been in a conversation and somebody asks you a question and you feel this split second where you're mentally like scrambling, like translating what they said, thinking of what you want to say in your native language, and then trying to translate that back into English?
Yeah, for so many people, that's the thing that's holding them back, is that split
Wow.
second. And they really feel like they're not having that effortless conversation.
Right, and it's so frustrating, and it can feel like you're just not going to be able to get over that. But, luckily for us, there are some strategies, some mental exercises, and they're all backed by science that we're going to unpack today that can help us flip that switch.
And, it's interesting. Most learners, I think, probably have had the experience where they've accidentally thought in English. Like, maybe they're dreaming or they react to something without thinking.
Oh, for sure. I've had that.
So we all have these little spontaneous moments where we think in English.
Yeah.
And that's really what we want to try to build on today.
Absolutely. We want to help you move beyond those moments that just kind of happen and to start being able to do that on purpose. You know what I mean? So you can just start processing information directly in English.
And it's not just about, having a better accent or anything superficial. It's really about a deeper connection with the language.
Yeah, absolutely. I can clearly remember when I was struggling with this and trying to get fluent, every conversation felt like I was just pushing through mud.
Yeah.
Because I was translating everything in my head constantly. It was so tiring, it was exhausting, and nothing sounded natural.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Yeah. And the real turning point for me was actually talking to another non-native English speaker, but this person spoke incredibly well. And I was like, how do you do it? And their advice, surprisingly, was so simple. They said they just make a conscious effort to internally describe things in simple English.
Like what kinds of things?
Yeah, just everyday stuff like the tea is strong or my shoes are pinching, just
Yeah.
little observations about what's going on around them. Nothing crazy.
That's so interesting because it seems so simple, but it's really powerful. And what that's doing is it's rewiring your brain.
Right.
It really is. And you're building this, what we call linguistic intuition.
Yeah, like knowing that a fast red car sounds right.
Right. And red a fast car does not sound right. But we don't need to think about the grammar rules to know that.
Exactly. So what happens is you start to connect the concepts directly with the English words and phrases.
Instead of going through your native language first.
Yeah. And when that happens, those connections in your brain become strengthened. It's kind of like when you practice an instrument.
Well, that's a great analogy.
So the more you do it, the stronger those connections become. And the results of rewiring your brain like this are huge. I mean, first of all, you start speaking faster because you're not translating anymore.
Right. Your responses are so much more immediate. It sounds natural.
Exactly. And also, you start to get a feel for the grammar, like what sounds right.
So it's not just about knowing the rules, it's about feeling them.
Yeah, yeah. It's about like the rhythm of the language, the flow of the language. And for a lot of people, this is huge.
What is?
This is like the key. You get more confident.
Oh, right. Because you're not constantly worried about translating and messing up the grammar and all that.
Yeah, yeah. So like all those awkward silences and the brain farts, they start to happen less often. And the really important thing here is this is not some magic trick that only like advanced learners can do. Even if you're just starting to learn English, you can start doing this.
Yeah, with really simple stuff. Hello, how are you? Nice to meet you. Just make your brain think about those things in English.
Yeah, little by little. And actually, here's a little challenge for all of you listening. Think of something you do every day. It could be, brushing your teeth, making coffee, checking email. And later, when you're doing that activity, see if you can describe it in English in your head. Just try to do it without translating from your native language.
That's such a good challenge. And it leads us perfectly to the next part, which is why does this work? Why does making this mental shift make such a difference?
Right? The science behind it.
Yeah. So we know it's good. We know it has all these benefits. But why? What's going on in the brain?
Yeah.
Basically, your brain has two different modes when it comes to English.
Yeah.
And you can kind of think of them like, I don't know, translation mode and direct thinking mode.
Yeah, okay, I like that. Two different systems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in translation mode, like we've been talking about, your brain is working as a middleman.
Okay.
It's taking English, translating it to your native language,
Yeah.
doing its thinking there, and then translating back to English. And that takes a lot of energy.
Yep.
It's a really intensive process. That's why it feels so slow and tiring.
It's like taking the long way around when there's a shortcut.
Exactly. But in direct thinking mode, you skip the middleman. You go straight to English. So your brain just connects sounds and symbols with meaning without that native language step.
So what's happening in the brain when we do that? Like, how does it actually make that switch?
Well, what's really cool is there have been studies on bilingualism that have shown that your brain actually changes physically when you think in a second language.
Yeah.
And some areas of the brain, like the angular gyrus, which is involved in like switching languages, it's less active. And then other areas that are related to intuition and automatic processing, like the basal ganglia, they become more active.
Wow, so it's not just like a mental thing, it's an actual like physical change in the brain.
Exactly. So the more you do it, the more those new pathways get stronger. And it's just like building muscle memory. The more you do something, the more automatic it becomes.
Right.
And it's not just about language. There are broader cognitive benefits to this too. Like, there are studies that show that bilingual people are often better at multitasking and problem solving.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And there's even some research that suggests it might delay the onset of dementia.
Wow, that's huge.
It is. Yeah. There was a study, I think it was from the University of Edinburgh, that said just the act of switching between languages strengthens your brain. It makes it more flexible and adaptable.
It's like a workout for your brain, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we know why it's good. We know what's happening in the brain. Now let's talk about how to actually do it.
The how, yes.
Because it's one thing to understand the theory, but it's another to actually put it into practice.
Yeah.
So where do we begin? What are some practical things people can start doing today?
Okay. What's like a good first step?
Well, one really simple thing is to start labeling the things around you in English. Just look around you right now. What do you see? A phone, a desk, a window. Whatever you see, start naming it in English in your head. It seems really basic, but it's powerful because you're creating that direct link between the object and the English word without needing your native language.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And then, so once you're good at that, you can start adding in descriptions.
Exactly. So instead of just chair, it's comfortable chair or old chair or whatever. So you're adding a little bit more complexity to it.
Okay. That's easy enough. What else? What's another strategy?
Another really good one is to start narrating your day to yourself in English. Just create this internal monologue in your head. So, when you're making coffee, think, I am making coffee, the water is boiling, I need to get dressed. Stuff like that.
Right.
It might feel a little weird at first,
Okay.
but it's really helpful to get your brain used to using English for everyday things.
Yeah. It's like you're forcing your brain to process those everyday things in English. And you can start simple and then get more complex as you go along, right?
Exactly. Start with short, easy sentences, and then, gradually add more detail. And the goal is to eventually have the internal monologue in English running as much as possible.
Okay. So we've got the labeling, we've got the narration. What else?
Another crucial thing is to avoid mental translation. So start paying attention to when you're automatically translating in your head from English to your native language or from your native language to English.
Okay.
And when you notice yourself doing that, consciously stop and try to think directly in English instead. It's about breaking that habit of relying on your native language.
Yeah. It sounds like it takes a lot of mental effort, especially at first.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like breaking any bad habit,
Yeah.
but it gets easier with practice.
Okay.
And when you catch yourself translating, just try to rephrase the thought in English, even if it
Yeah.
sounds simpler. The point is to break that dependence on your native language.
Right. That makes sense. Okay, so we've got some good mental exercises there. But what about our environment? Like, how does that play into thinking in English?
Oh, environment is huge. We always talk about immersion being so important for language learning. And living in an English-speaking country is obviously the best immersion. But you can create your own immersion at home.
Okay, that's good.
It's about surrounding yourself with English as much as possible.
So, how do we do that?
Well, one of the easiest ways is to consume a lot of English media, like watch movies and TV shows in English, listen to music and podcasts in English. Just constantly expose yourself to the language.
Right. And it's better to really engage with it, right? Not just have it on in the background.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're watching a show, maybe turn on the English subtitles,
Okay.
even if you need the subtitles in your native language at first. Just having them both there can really help connect the written and spoken words. And with music, try to follow along with the lyrics.
Right. The more senses you use, the better. What
Mhm.
are some other ways to make our environment more Englishy?
Something simple but surprisingly effective is to change the language settings on all your devices to English. Your phone, your computer, your social media, everything.
Okay.
It forces you to interact with English all the time without even thinking about it. And you'll learn new vocabulary related to technology.
That's a good idea. It makes English a part of your daily life.
Yeah. And then there's visualization. So take some time to imagine yourself in different situations where you'd be speaking English,
Oh,
like
okay.
ordering coffee, asking for directions, things like that.
Mental simulations.
Exactly. And the more vivid you can make it, the better. It helps your brain prepare for real-life interactions.
Right. Okay, so those are some great tips for creating an immersive environment. What about actual mental practice?
Oh, that's where mental rehearsal comes in. This is something athletes and musicians use all the time to improve their skills, even when they're not physically practicing.
Really? How does
Yeah.
that work with language learning?
Well, it's basically the same idea. You
Yeah.
just practice conversations in your head. So, like, you can replay past conversations and think about how you could have responded differently.
Mm.
Or you can anticipate future conversations and practice what you want to say. It's a safe space to practice and work through challenges.
Yeah, it's like a dress rehearsal for your brain.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of daydreaming.
Really?
Yeah, let your mind wander.
Yeah.
But when it does, try to make those daydreams in English. Imagine yourself speaking English fluently in different situations.
So I can actually daydream productively.
You can,
Yeah.
because your brain doesn't really know the difference between a vivid imagination and real life. So daydreaming in English is like giving your brain a practice run.
Huh, that's really interesting. So we've got all these great strategies, but I'm sure there are some challenges that people might face when they're trying to think in English. What are some of the most common ones?
Well, one that comes up a lot is just feeling slow or frustrated at first.
Right. Because it's hard.
Yeah, when you start doing this, you might feel like your thoughts are less clear, they take longer to form, and they don't have the same nuance as they do in your native language.
And that can be really discouraging.
It can be,
Yeah.
but it's totally normal. You're basically teaching your brain a new way to operate. So be patient with yourself
Okay.
and focus on the small wins. Like, did you manage to think a simple phrase in English without translating? That's awesome. Celebrate that.
Yeah.
Don't compare yourself to fluent speakers. Just compare yourself to where you were before. And remember, slow and steady progress is still progress.
Right. That's good advice. What's another common challenge?
Another big one is mental fatigue. Because thinking in a second language, especially when you're making that conscious effort, it can be really tiring.
So what do we do about that?
Well, it's important to listen to your body and take breaks. You could try something like the 5-minute rule. So tell yourself, okay, I'm going to focus on thinking in English for 5 more minutes.
Okay.
I'm going to take a break. Or you could switch to a less demanding English activity, like listening to music, and of course, stay hydrated and get some exercise.
Right. Take care of yourself, basically. What about those moments where your mind just goes blank, like during a conversation? Does thinking in English help with that?
It can definitely help reduce those moments, but it can still happen. It happens to everyone. The key is to have some strategies for dealing with it when it does.
Okay, what are those strategies?
One is to buy yourself some time. So you can use phrases like, that's an interesting question. Let me think about that for a moment. That gives you a few seconds to gather your thoughts.
Okay.
Another strategy is to simplify your language. So if you can't think of the exact word you want, just try to say the same thing in simpler words.
Right.
And sometimes it can even help to just acknowledge it with humor. Like say something like, oh, my English decided to take a break.
Yeah, that can lighten the mood.
It can. And it can help you relax and get back on track.
Right. So we've talked about basic strategies. What about more advanced techniques for people who really want to take their English thinking to the next level?
Well, once you're comfortable with basic thinking, you can start challenging yourself with more abstract concepts, like try to think about your opinions, your sense of humor, your emotions, all in English.
Okay, that sounds hard. How do we do that?
Well, one way is to engage with English content that deals with those topics. So read opinion pieces, watch comedy shows, things like that, and try to think about your own reactions in English.
Okay, like, I agree with this or I disagree with that.
Exactly. And you can also try to understand English humor. So listen to jokes, try to figure out puns, and even try to make your own jokes in English.
Right. It's about thinking the way native speakers think.
It is. And then there's thinking about your emotions in English.
Mm.
So try to label your feelings throughout the day. Like instead of I'm happy, think I'm joyful or I'm content.
Right, or I'm frustrated or I'm disappointed when you're feeling those things.
Exactly. Expanding your emotional vocabulary in English can really deepen your connection with the language.
Okay, that's really interesting. What's another, maybe a little less conventional, advanced technique?
Well, a lot of people find that as they get more fluent and they start thinking in English more, they start dreaming in English.
Oh, wow.
And while you can't control your dreams, you can try to encourage them.
Okay, how do we do that?
One thing you can do is immerse yourself in English right before bed, like watch a show, read a book, listen to a podcast. You can also just try to set the intention to dream in English as you're falling asleep.
Okay.
If you do have a dream in English, try to write down some of the things you remember when you wake up.
That's so cool. It's like your brain is working on English even when you're sleeping.
Yeah, it is. And then another advanced technique is to practice mental storytelling or self-debates.
What does that mean?
So try to tell yourself stories about your memories or experiences in English. Or pick a topic you're interested in and argue both sides of the issue in your head.
Okay.
This helps you build fluency and connect ideas in English without translating.
Right. It's like a mental workout for your English.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different techniques, but do you have any examples of people who have actually done this, who have switched to thinking in English and how it's helped them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hearing other people's stories can be really inspiring. So, for example, there's Carlos from Brazil.
Okay.
He'd been studying English for years, but he felt stuck at an intermediate level. And he decided to try narrating his morning coffee routine in English. Just basic things like I'm grinding the beans, the aroma's getting stronger, things like that.
Okay, so what happened?
Well, after about 6 months of doing this every day, he was in a work meeting and he found himself confidently having a debate about climate change in English. He hadn't prepared for it at all, but it just came out naturally.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was. And he realized that by practicing thinking in English about simple things, his overall fluency had improved without him even realizing it.
Right. So consistency is key. What's
Oh.
another example?
Okay, there's Yuki from Japan. She loves watching British TV shows before bed. And one night she had a dream that her cat was talking to her in perfect British English.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was. And after that dream, she noticed that her listening comprehension had gotten much better.
Wow.
Yeah, she thinks it's because her brain was processing English on a subconscious level while she slept. So now she makes sure to have English playing in the background, even when she's doing other things.
That's a good idea. What about another example?
Okay, there's Luca Lampariello. He's a famous polyglot. He speaks like a dozen languages fluently.
Wow.
And one of his biggest principles is to never learn new words through translation.
Really?
Yeah, he connects new words directly with images, contexts, and emotions. So for him, the English word dog isn't just a translation of the word in his native language.
Right?
It's connected to the feeling of his childhood dog licking his face.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he uses flashcards with pictures, not translations. And he makes a point of linking new words to his own personal memories.
That makes it so much more meaningful.
Exactly.
Wow, those are some really inspiring stories. So, we've talked about the why, the how, the challenges, some advanced techniques, and we've heard some real life examples. Now, what's next? What can our listeners do to actually start thinking in English?
Well, I think it would be fun to do a 7-day Think in English challenge.
Okay, I like that. What would that look like?
So for the first 2 days, we'll focus on labeling. So 3 times a day, just look around your environment and name 5 things in English.
Easy enough. What about days 3 and 4?
On those days, we'll focus on narrating your actions.
Yeah.
So pick an activity you do every day and try to describe what you're doing in English for at least 5 minutes.
Okay.
Then, on days 5 and 6, we'll practice forming simple opinions. So once a day, think about something you experienced and try to express your thoughts about it in English.
Right.
And then on the final day, day 7, we'll do a little mental movie exercise. So replay a conversation you had in English and think about how you could have responded differently.
Oh, that's a good one. So, what are some tools or resources that might be helpful for people doing this challenge?
Well, you can use voice memo apps to record yourself speaking.
Mm.
You can keep a journal and write down some of your thoughts in English. And of course, there are language learning apps and online dictionaries that can help you learn new words without translating.
Right.
And don't forget, making mistakes is part of the process. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn.
Yeah. Beautiful. Oops. Right.
Exactly. So just be consistent, be patient, and be kind to yourself. And every time you think in English, you're taking a step towards fluency.
And we want to hear about your progress. Share your experiences on social media using the hashtag #ThinkInEnglishWin.
Yeah. Let us know how it's going.
So, to wrap things up, the key takeaway today is that fluency isn't just about knowing words and grammar. It's about thinking in English.
Yeah, it's about making that mental shift. And when you do, you'll start to see real progress.
So we encourage you to talk to yourself in English, daydream in English, and just embrace the challenge.
And imagine that moment when you realize you've just thought a whole sentence or even a whole paragraph in English without even trying. That's the goal.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, we might do another one in the future where we go even deeper into mental rehearsal.
Or maybe we could do some vocabulary challenges.
Yeah, that would be fun. So keep practicing, keep challenging yourselves, and keep thinking in English. You've got this. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time.